All right, just checking. See if technology's working today. Hello, everyone. Right. Hi, everyone. We'll just wait another moment to see who else is joining us live. Right. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Jenny Ponzurek. I'm school psychologist for about 20 plus odd years. I've been in the field and just so excited to be here with you guys today to talk about what is another word for burned out. Now, as I mentioned, I've been in this field for over 20 years, and for any of you who is newer to this field, it wasn't always this difficult. It just seems to get harder and harder and harder every single year. The amount of things that school psychologists in general have been asked to take on have been a lot, and those things keep adding to the list, and doesn't seem to really be a lot of things that are taken off of the list. And I know a lot of times as we think about how we're feeling about things, burned out, overwhelmed, kind of feel like in the last 2 years we need another word for this, because I feel like it's gone beyond just the typical overwhelm. It's gone beyond just the typical burned out. School psychology has always been a difficult field, a very rewarding field, but difficult field for a lot of us. But these last couple of years have definitely been a doozy. And for those of you who have been doing this for about a year or two, hopefully when we get outside of a global pandemic, things might get a little bit better. Hopefully in our field here. So I wanted to chat a little bit about being burned out, feeling overwhelmed. What are some things to consider? And as we're talking about these things, I know for a lot of you, you are finishing up school maybe this week or next week. There are many of you who've already finished up your school year and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling burned out at all, because you're hanging out in summer vacation. But I think it's important for us to think about some of these things in preparation for coming back to the fall. And then, of course, we always have some school psychologists that are working year round, right? And so maybe don't have as much of a break that you probably need to have. So one of the quick tips I want to give is something that I remember when I learned this, and I thought it was an interesting perspective on the term overwhelm. Now, the person who taught me this, I remember what she said. She said overwhelm is a choice because it's a thought that you have about your situation. Now, I don't know how much I really like that it's a choice, like that I'm choosing to feel overwhelmed. I'm someone who easily becomes anxious. And so I'm like, I don't know if I 100% agree with that. But nonetheless, what are some different tips when we are feeling overwhelmed? And all of you know what that feels like. You've probably felt that about a bazillion times this last school year. So one of the things that I thought was impressive that this person had shared with me was about cortisol. So we all know cortisol is the stress hormone, right? It's released from our brain when we're feeling anxious and stressed and overwhelmed. But it actually only lasts for about 90 seconds. Now, if we are consistently feeling overwhelmed, it'll be released. But cortisol originally, when it is released, lasts 90 seconds, about 90 seconds. So one of the tips is, if you're really feeling very overwhelmed, is to start counting backwards from 90. Because once you get to 0, the idea would be that the cortisol is no longer racing through your system. Also, of course, counting backwards gives your brain something else to focus on, right? So step number 1 is counting backwards from 90, and step number 2 is to do something. Now, doing something, probably not picking up your phone and like scrolling unless you're watching a live with me, right? No, I'm just kidding. For me, I will tell you, typically the one thing for me is if I haven't made a list, making a list, I'm just going to talk about for me, tends to be something that can help with the overwhelm, because a lot of times I'm feeling that overwhelm because it's all just spiraling up here. and I need to get it down on paper to get it out of my brain. And so a lot of times when I'm using this tip, I'm counting backwards, and then when I get to 0, I'm just pulling out a piece of paper and I'm just gonna like brain dump everything that's going on in my head. So it might be, writing a list like I mentioned. It could be just like a quick journal, or again, like a brain dump of here are all these different thoughts. But a lot of times it gives me that opportunity to just refocus on something else to do. So next time you are feeling that way, and for some of you, it's not just work that causes this feeling inside of our bodies. And so if you have those opportunities this summer where you're feeling that way, you might want to practice this, right? Because if this isn't something that you are consistently utilizing as a tool, then when you're in the midst of it, it's probably not something that you're going to go to right away, right? Because we're just swirling inside of our brains. So one of the things that I did when I first learned this tip is I just put a Post-it note on my computer screen, and it just said 90 on it. 90, just the number itself, was the only trigger that I needed to remind myself of that as a tool. And a lot of times when I'm feeling that overwhelm, I'm staring at my computer for a variety of different reasons. So that was for me a place that I could put that in, and if anyone else saw it, they didn't need to know what it meant. So next time you're in this feeling, I'm gonna encourage you to try this out. Let me know if it works for you. Count backwards from 90, let that cortisol kind of pass through and process through your system, and then just do something. Do something usually that kind of moves you a little bit forward. That's why I was talking about writing a list or writing down my thoughts. Sometimes I'll even just jot down for myself thoughts I have, the worries I have about what this parent might say if I make this phone call, right? And then I just go over the shredder and I shred all my thoughts, right? And then they can go away. No one else has to accidentally read them, right? Okay, so that's the one tip that I wanted to share with you. But the other thing that I think all of us have realized, and I almost feel bad about even using this term self-care because I feel like it's being very overly used. And depending on your school site and your school district, I know I was working with a school district a couple of years ago. They actually provided wellness days for their staff that they could take off a day to work on that. However, one day off, one bubble bath, one, relaxing evening, watching whatever you want to be watching on TV, that isn't solving the underlying problem, right? The underlying problem for a lot of us is not just, I'm not exercising every day. Now, exercising every day, meditating, taking that bubble bath, whatever, those types of things that really work for you. Yes, that can help, and there's definitely long-term benefits. But when we really reflect on the last couple of years, for a lot of us, when we're thinking about what's causing all of this stress, what's causing this feeling of burnout, what's causing school psychologists brand new to the field to say, I don't know if this is what I really want to be doing. Nobody told me about this in grad school. Self-care isn't going to fix the underlying problem, right? Because for a lot of us, when we're reflecting on what's going on, there's some broken systems at our school sites, right? There's a lack of processes. Every kid who's struggling, every parent who's concerned, every teacher's concerned, automatically goes to special education. And we know that's not the answer to everything. It's actually the answer to very few difficulties that are being, discussed out there. So self-care isn't solving that underlying problem. And, again, for a lot of you, you are finishing up the school year. You might be already done and out completely. But one of the things I tend to want to do at the end of every school year is really reflect on what's working, what's not working at my school or my school sites. And I think school psychologists are unique for a variety of different ways. We're super special, but we're unique in ways at the school site because we tend to get a pretty big picture perspective on things, meaning whether you're at an elementary school, middle school, high school, preschool, you're not just hanging out with a third grade team, or you're not just hanging out with the math department at your high school, you're getting a pretty big picture look about what's going on at the school. You're able to take a look at the 9 bazillion meetings you've attended this last school year. And for some of us, we take a lot of notes in regards to, keeping track of our time, looking at, all the data that we usually have to turn into the district office in regards to how many kids did we evaluate, where did the referrals come from, all of those types of things. So for me, one of the things I think about at the end of the year, here's another list. Can you tell I like to make lists? I like to make lists. Is what is your data showing you? What is your data showing you? For example, I remember really early on in my career, one of the reflections that I had was, wow, we have a lot of retention meetings at the end of the school year. Like, I worked at the elementary level and I was just like, wow, we sometimes have 1 or 2 days, full days of 20 to 30-minute meetings to talk about all these kindergartners that teachers want to retain. And I was like, it seems like there's a lot of kids that we're talking about. And then one of the things that I noticed was how many students, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, that I ended up evaluating for special education, who, when I was doing their record review, were all retained. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem to have solved the problem, right? The idea behind retention, I'm not going to talk about every single case out there, but, talking with many teachers, is that the kids just need an extra year and they're going to catch right on up and they will be fine. And what I realized is that's not what my data was showing me. My data was showing me that we have a lot of retention meetings and we have a lot of kids that we're evaluating, that we use that as an intervention. It obviously didn't solve the underlying problem. And so for me, early on in my career, kind of looking at that data and then trying to figure out, well, obviously that's not a solution that's working for the large majority of our students. So can I go and have a conversation with my admin and talk about some other things that we might want to try out? What are we noticing are the main reasons why these students are all being brought up for retention? Are we noticing any sort of theme in regards to the concerns that the teachers and or the parents are bringing up? And is there another way that we can talk about, supporting students so it doesn't have to get to that point? I remember one of the schools that I was at one year, we had a meeting. I think we talked about 10 kindergartners all in the same day. And at the end of the meeting, I looked at my administrator and I said, we actually don't have very many English learners at this school. However, all 10 of the kids are English learners. That seems to be a pretty high percentage of our EL students in kindergarten that are all up for retention, and none of our English only students are up for retention. I would hate for it to look discriminatory. That was a key term that kind of got my administrator's attention right there. And I said, it seems like we need to do something else. We have like this entire group of students that have some similarities here in regards to the concerns we have. It seems like we should be doing something else instead. Now, those were just little conversations along the way. I'm not saying I've had all these conversations with administrators and they're like, Jenny, you are 100% correct. Let's fix this right now. Absolutely not. But one of the things that a lot of people respond to is the data, right? It wasn't like, oh, it seems like we talk about a lot of EL students for retention. Nope, 10 students. We just had all of their meetings. I wrote down, their state language proficiency scores for every single meeting. Feel like we need to be doing something else here. So as you are reflecting on what you think are some of those underlying reasons for your constant state of overwhelm and burnout this year, where do you see are those holes for the school district, for your school site? Jot down some of that information. See if you have any data to back up what you're noticing, and then see who might be a person that you can at least share this information with. So it's not just you keeping a hold of all this information, but how could we bring this information to someone where we might move a couple of baby steps forward, right? Again, well aware that I've worked with many different administrators, and some administrators love these conversations, and we work together to build some systems and to, improve upon practices in general education. And I've worked with some administrators who really don't want to have that conversation with me, and I will share it. I will document that we had that conversation, and I'm going to do what I can do from my perspective, but we're not going to be working together on this one. And that's okay. And then usually I might ask to be at a different school site the next year. Those kind of things have happened in my past there. So if you have not completely erased all of this past school year out of your brain, this may be something that could be helpful to take a look at what have you noticed about referral reasons. I think most school psychs that I've talked to this last year have seen an increase in referrals for special education evaluations. So where are we seeing that stemming from? A lot of people talk about increase in behavioral and social emotional concerns. People are, of course, those working at the younger elementary level are seeing a lot of those academic difficulties, specifically in the area of reading. We have a lot of questions about how much of that was related to COVID-related learning loss. So, writing down and kind of gathering some information here so that when we're ready to have that conversation, maybe at the end of the year to close out the year with our administrator, we'd have some information to kind of share and let them kind of mull that over the summer. And then when we come back in the fall, check in, see what, new ideas they might have been thinking about, you may have been thinking about as well. And I will say, for those of you who have not heard yet, I am offering a summer boot camp in July. And one of the things that we're offering to anybody who signs up is a free session all about kind of being beyond burned out. So it's not me who's going to talk, but a really good colleague of mine, Coach Kelly Mobeck. She is the person who does an amazing podcast called, let me make sure I'm going to say it right, Let's Be Honest Before We Start Pretending. If you haven't listened to it, it's a really great podcast, a lot of great things to be thinking about. But she's been doing a lot of discussions around this conversation, and I was like, oh, this would be great to bring to school psychologists this summer so that, we're not quite sure what the fall is going to look like, and we definitely need as many tips and processes and little things to put in our toolbox. So for many of us, we don't have a repeat of this school year. So Coach Kelly is going to do an extra session for everyone, whether you are doing the free sessions. So for anyone who is going into their internship, practicum, your first year as a school psych, we're doing free sessions for everyone. It's 10 sessions over 10 days, an hour every day. So I think it's 9 to 10 a.m. every single day. And if you're not able to make it live to any of the or all of the sessions, we're recording everything. And then we do have some sessions for psychologists who have done this for a little bit of time. I kind of call that group the newer, like you're just finished your first year, or you're kind of getting to, the fourth or fifth year, and you're working on making sure that you're doing everything right. And we want to make sure we're improving our practices. So we have 10 sessions over 10 days. Those are 90 minutes each in length. And I think those are about 10:45 to 12:15, maybe, if I'm trying to remember. Go ahead and go over to my website, and we put down start and stop times for all of our all of our sessions over there. And those 10 sessions are, there is a fee if you want to participate in those, but it's just one cost for all 10 of them. It's just $37. And then you also, if you want to come to the free sessions, you can come to those as well. And then we also have some deep dive topics for people who've been in the field for a little bit longer, and you want to, take that deep dive into some of these other topics. Then you can either purchase any of those deep dives separately, or you can purchase all 4 of them for one lower price. And if you purchase a deep dive, guess what? You get to go to the Improving My Practices and the free sessions if that's something that interests you as well. And any of those groups, all of those groups, are invited to the free Beyond Burned Out session that we are doing with Coach Kelly. And that, of course, is everything is being recorded. So all of the replays will be available within about 24 to 48 hours of the live sessions. And then everyone will have access to those recordings through October 31st. So we're giving people a couple of months into the school year. If you're actually taking time off in July, high five to anyone who's doing that out there. And you're like, I'm on vacation, or I don't want to be talking school psych stuff in the middle of July. Go take your vacation, come on back, and you can listen to the replays. All you would need to do is register before the end of June so that you have all of access to all of those different replays. So if you are interested in learning more, just go ahead and go over to my website, jennyponzurek.com. I see someone said they're looking forward to the boot camp. Excellent. I'm excited. I am too. I'm going to be doing a couple of the sessions, but most of the sessions are being done by other people. I'm so thankful. I have a lot of different colleagues and people I've connected with over the years who are able to just come on in and do a variety of different sessions, from anything from making sure we're doing a good evaluation for emotional disturbance, working on our counseling skills, making sure that we are feeling comfortable with things like dyslexia, report writing, a lot of different sessions on a lot of different topics. So again, if you go over to jennyponzurek.com, you're going to see a pink button right at the top that says Summer Boot Camp, and you can find out all of the information there. And if you have any questions about any of the information, if you scroll to the bottom of, I think, almost every single page, you'll see a place where you can send me a question. Feel free to do that. I try and respond within about 24 hours, Monday through Friday, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Yes, so someone asked, can I tell you the name of the podcast? Let's Be Honest Before We Start Pretending. And her name is Kelly Mobeck, Mobeck. And she has new episodes every Monday. And I'm really excited that she said yes to be able to do this session with me and for all of our school psychologists joining us for Summer Boot Camp this summer. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to listen to it. I know she was sharing with me a couple of books she's reading on this topic to get a lot of that updated information. So I can't wait to hear it too. All right, everyone. Unless there's any other questions, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being here with me today. And as I mentioned, if you guys do have any follow-up questions, feel free to go ahead and head over to my website, jennyponzurek.com, and fill out the form at the bottom, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. Other than that, thanks for being here, everyone. See you guys later.